Hello, everybody. I'm George Williams from the Northeast Kansas Library System in Lawrence, Kansas.
I'm Christopher Brannon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network.
And we're doing another video in our long, never-ending, fun-filled series of videos for koha-US, the terrific Every Other Thursday training video. And this week, we're doing a video that was a suggestion from, let's see, I guess it was Season 2, Episode 8, jQuery and CSS Tweaking the Reports Environment. Ed Veal in McKinney, Texas had a question about something that we just glanced over really quickly, tabbed content. And so I have one way that I do tabbed content on the reports, circulation, and the main page in the staff interface. Christopher has a different way he does tabbed content. So we're calling this episode the Tab Content
Koha Hackdown.
I'll show off how I do it, and then Christopher can show off how he does it. Yours is using mostly Bootstrap, right? You're using elements that are part of Bootstrap. The system I'm using, I actually did a presentation on this at the 2017 koha-US conference in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And I think that conference presentation was recorded, but it's one of those ones, it was one of the first ones that was the first conference where we recorded things. And I think the video is actually a black screen and you can hear my voice. So it's not really a very interactive or interesting video. And so as always, you can find all of our videos. We're part of koha-US, where we do these videos on behalf of the Education Committee. You can find the videos currently if you go to Learn and scroll down to Watch koha-US Original Training Videos. You'll find all our videos there. Like I said, this video was from a comment made by Ed on this jQuery and CSS video that we did back in January, so about a month ago. And I'll just jump right in here and show you where this is going to go. So this text area down here, this is the koha-US demo site. And this area down here is governed by a system preference. It's called Intranet Main User Block. And you can go to this system preference and you can put whatever kind of crazy HTML you want to put in there. And there's another block like that on circulation. This area here is controlled by that system preference. And then there's another area on reports. This area is governed by Internet Reports. And there's some places you can use this on the OPAC as well. I don't think those are as clearly defined on our demo site. We actually went in and put these in here just so that we could show, to make it easy to find where to edit those. So let me jump over here and go to, not reports, I want admin. And I'm just going to pop up that system preference. And where you're going to find my copy of all of this content is on my website. I created a page that it was easy to find. And I want to point out that this isn't code that I just magically sat down and created by myself. It came from GitHub, Sean2D2 at GitHub, and there's a link on my page to his original code for this. And I'm just going to copy this out of here. I've got all the code you need right here on my website where it's easy to find. And it's been modified a little bit to make it work for Koha. And I'm just going to plug all this in here. And if we go back to the home of the staff client, there we got tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, tab 4. So the way this code is actually working, let me go back here. There's a big section of CSS. All of this stuff here is CSS, and this controls the style of the tabs, where they appear, how it's all going to look, how the boxes are drawn. And then there's some JavaScript that gets run when this page is load. And this creates all of the click events, what happens when you hover over one of the, when you hover, it changes the color of the tabs. What happens when you click on the tabs, how they switch. This is the jQuery, and the JavaScript is what controls all of that. And then down here, this is the part where you're going to have to do some work. If you load this into one of your sites, this part here is going to control what the content is. So you would have to come in here and you can make the tabs any name that you want. You can see 4 tabs here, but I actually have 5 in the code, and one of them is hidden. So if you only need 3 tabs, there's some stuff that I put on our site that we only needed for a temporary amount of time. And so I'll put that on a tab and then hide it when we don't need it, and then unhide it when we do need it. But you just have to go in and make the HTML. So that's the one thing you're really going to need to know to use this is you're going to need to write the HTML. Let me open up Next Search Catalog, our production system. And this is what I have here. I have high demand requests. This page gets populated. My library isn't the best one to show it at because we never have requests. But let me go to Leavenworth. So the first thing that the Leavenworth staff see is they see this table that says these are the things that have, these are the requests that have a lot of demand at their library. This tab has links to statistics spreadsheets.
Wow.
There's a set of instructions for how to unlock somebody's account. Here are last year's statistics. And then we have a tab that's got some help for using Hoopla.
Thanks.
So we put all this different stuff on here, and then I have a completely different set of tabs on the reports page, mostly related to reports. So that's what we're using it for, and we're using this combination of CSS and JavaScript and jQuery that I got from this guy on GitHub way back, in 2015, I think. So it's code that's been around for a while.
So it's straight into
Yeah.
the page, not in your jQuery.
Yeah, it's all straight into the page. It's all one package. And I can use it on Internet main user block, and I also use it on Internet Reports Home HTML. And I could, but I don't use it on, currently I'm not using on Internet Circ Home HTML.
So just to recap, yours is using JavaScript and CSS combination, but
Yep.
It's all built into the HTML page, so you don't have to put it in your JavaScript. Have you had to make any modifications over time with the different upgrades?
I did make some modifications based on the first version because I was using a class name. It was either a class name or an ID name that somebody added into the regular Koha list of class names. So it became one that it was interfering with another class name, and so I changed it. Other than that, I haven't had to make hardly any changes to it at all. More often than not, the changes that I make are to the actual content, what's being displayed on those tabs. But I've had to make very little changes to the CSS or to the JavaScript.
Okay.
One thing I do is I use different class names for the tabs on the reports page and the circulation page. So that way I know which one's which. That way if there are any new changes come along, they're less likely to be affected by changes in Koha.
Okay. All right.
So let's see what you got.
So this is our test screen for our test OPAC for our consortium. I wanted to use this. I did put a version on our koha-US site in the OPAC, but it is currently not working. I have to go in there and update it. I think some changes were made on the last upgrade that weren't quite right.
There were a lot of Bootstrap changes in the
Yes.
last upgrade. Yeah.
So my version of tabs is going to involve HTML. It's basically HTML, but it's tied in with Bootstrap. The great part about this is you don't have to know Java. You don't have to know any CSS. The downside is you have to make modifications if they update the Bootstrap, because I found that I did a Bootstrap version, and then then the community upgraded the Bootstrap, and I found out it wasn't the most current Bootstrap, and the most current Bootstrap versions don't work in this. So you have to get the right Bootstrap version in order to get this to work. But as long as you know what Bootstrap version you're working in, you're golden. And I do not remember off the top of my head what version of Bootstrap, but I will find out, and I will put it down in the corner so we know what version we're working with on this video. Anyways, so this is our homepage on our test server for the OPAC, and right now it has just some buttons in there. I usually have the cover flow going on this page. I'm going to add cover flow, but the issue with cover flow is we have different categories we like to show for cover flow, and I don't want to show them all on the same page, so I like to have those in tabbed categories. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some code here real quick. Let me show you what it's going to look like all together. I will go in. Now this is managed in the news section of Koha admin, or tools actually, and it is the OPAC main user block. And I'm going to edit this, and there's my buttons right there. But I'm going to go into the HTML, drop that down a little bit. I'm going to go grab my code real quick, save that in there, and it doesn't look like much right here. You're not going to see the effects of it in the editor, unfortunately. I'll submit that and refresh the screen, and now we've got our tabs with our cover flows. The code that I added adds the tabs for the different categories, adds the cover flow, adds a search box at the bottom for searching for more. And if you notice, when you refresh, it's really fast, but there's a spinner that's saying that it's loading information, just in case there's something slow going on the system. But now I have different categories for the cover flow. Okay, so let me break this down how this works. I'm going to actually bring my editor over here and talk about this. This is the basic structure of what I've got going on. This is not all of the code. This is just some of it. All of the code that's highlighted here, this is all that I put in there. And this is the button panel at the bottom. But this is all of what's in there. But the structure is, somewhat simple. I find that your version, the Java, is laid out a little bit more understandably than Bootstrap. It took me a little bit of time to figure out how Bootstrap worked and convert over to it, because I was using the Java before. The reason I went over to Bootstrap was because I was strictly dealing with HTML and Bootstrap HTML. So I just needed to learn a few tags, attributes to add to my different tags, and I was able to put the tabs together. So this section up here, this unordered list, is your list of tabs that you're going to have at the top. I just have one in here, but basically you're creating a list item, and you have to make sure that you're paying attention to the classes here. So this has a class of nav and nav tabs. So this is the tabs that are being defined. And then the class for each of these items is nav item. And I think there's waves effects and waves light. Those are different options. I didn't play with any of this. I just grabbed this off of whatever references I could find that worked and put it in here. But this may change the way these tabs actually look here. And then I've got a link here for this tab, and the way it operates, the data toggle you want to have in there set to tab, and the H reference is just referencing the, let's see here, what is it? The div that's going to define the content that goes in that panel.
Okay.
So here you're referencing that particular div that has the information that goes in there. The role is going to be tab always. ARIA controls is set to nav new adult. So basically the same thing. And selected as true. This is my default tab that we go to, and then here's the information that goes in the tab name. So what the tab actually says in the tab goes here. So you'll create a list item for each of your tabs following this general piece of code here. So you'll just repeat this every time that you want to make a new tab, and then you'll have to make a div that has the content for that, that particular one. Now I have some extra divs in here because I laid out the panel. I created the tab content here, so it contains everything. All of the different panels go inside this, but not the tabs themselves. So inside the main div are all the divs that have the different sections. I do have wrapped around this div, I have this div that's called the nav new adult. So it matches my tab, and it has a ARIA labeled by equals, and then it's referring back to, well, it's actually not referring to anything. It's just, I just call it nav new adult tab. I thought it had a reference back to that, but oh, yeah, it did. Okay, so it is referring back to the ID of that tab. There's another div within there. I call this my inner panel, my cover flow inner panel, and this is where I put the temporary information that shows up until the cover flow is loaded. And so it'll have a spinner, and it'll say looking for awesome things for the grown-ups. So that'll show up there until the content is loaded. This div is controlled by this class right here. So this ID is what I use in the cover flow. And so it's replacing this information. This div down below here, this is the actual link that was at the bottom. So if I switch back here, it's this link here that's tied to a report.
Okay.
So this extra little div down here just lives down at the bottom of that. So if they want to search for more that beyond what the cover flow is showing, they can click on it. This is an actual search. So I did a search, did an advanced search, putting in all the criteria to match basically, the kinds of things that I'm looking for in my cover flow. And so if you want to go beyond that, you click on this, it does that search with all that criteria, and it comes up with those new adult items that are in our catalog.
Okay.
So that's a live view of that. And then down here, so these are all the opening and closing divs for that particular piece of content, and you just repeat that. So this div from here down to here, not the tab content, that's the one that wraps around absolutely everything.
Right.
But from here to here, this is what you would repeat for each section. So if you look at this, here's my main div wrapper, and then here's the section
That's
that
one
has the
tab.
content for the new adult content. And then this one's the next section for the new teen content. So that's the children, and then the checked out and what's returned.
Right.
And then of course my button panel at the bottom. But overall, the end result looks really nice. I'm really happy with how it functions. And it's a clean look. It offers a little bit more stylization than the Java one, but I'm sure that you can add more stylization to the Java one if you want to tinker with those. But
no, this looks really good. It simplifies a lot of things.
I think it really depends on what you're comfortable with. I think it really depends on what you're comfortable with, because some people might be more comfortable with Java and CSS, and some might just be fine with HTML. Both have a level of complexity to it. It's not straight HTML. You do have to have a little bit of understanding. I had to go and research the Bootstrap version of tabbing quite a bit in order to make it work. I tried several different renditions of it, and what I had found, what I was running into was I wasn't using the correct version of Bootstrap, because they do it differently in newer versions.
Right.
So,
I can see that as being possibly the biggest drawback is any change in Bootstrap is going to require learning that new version.
yeah, but in itself, you're not dealing with a whole lot of new language. You're dealing with some ARIA controls and you're dealing with ARIA controls, and you're dealing with different classes. That's really the driving force behind all of it. Whereas, with Java, you're stepping outside of just straight HTML and working with another language. And the nice thing about Java is you're able to incorporate more logic into it if you need to. So, I mean, both have their pros and cons.
I can see the pro of yours being less code, potentially.
I think the pro of yours is I think the layout was a lot simpler.
The layout makes sense to me because I've written a lot of pages in that style.
And I think too, because I'm doing cover flow in mine, it added a layer of complexity to it. If I was just doing straight tabs, and I really should have, looked at what you had ahead of time and mocked up the exact same scenario with Bootstrap. That would have been more of a apples to apples. This is a little more apples to grapples.
Cars.
So it's hard to compare it because of the complexity I have with my divs in there, just because I've layered some things in there. But in its simplest form, I think that it might compare to it. But the nice thing is I'm not dealing with a bunch of CSS to make it, to make it lay out just right. Bootstrap has already done that.
Bootstrap's already taken care of that part of it.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I like this. For me, it was a little simpler, and I wasn't having to stuff all of this into JavaScript somewhere. Originally, when I was doing JavaScript, I was actually sticking it in the jQuery. I wasn't sticking it in the actual HTML page. And that might have simplified things a little bit for me too.
Yeah.
So I do like doing it straight in the page rather than having to do it elsewhere. But the benefit, another thing that you could possibly do if you're using the same CSS over and over and over, you might not want to put that straight in your code. You could add that CSS to your CSS,
right,
and just reuse it for each of those pages. Just make sure you're referencing the same things that it needs.
Right.
So,
which Bootstrap kind of already does that for you.
Yep.
So, well,
all right.
Hopefully some people get some ideas about how to manage their content. The reason that I started doing it in the first place is because I was working at a library where half of the libraries closed for the summer, and so we had a list of all the libraries, and we had other content we wanted on there. And so at one point, the page was like 5 miles tall, and by putting the tabs, then it was still 5 miles tall, but you only had to look at 1 mile at a time. And so hopefully if anybody else is using has a lot of content on there on one of those pages, and then you want to break it up, that's one of the ways to break it up, is to break those into tabs. So
tabs
hopefully
have definitely been a lifesaver for scrolling. And I know that, especially when it comes to content for the OPAC, save your patrons all that work of scrolling to find stuff. If you can organize things in tabs, make it a little bit easier to group stuff, your patrons are going to be happier.
Yeah, the bottom line is they won't scroll. If it's the further down it is, the less likely they are to see it. So,
right.
But if you can put it all there and just change it by clicking through, they'll actually get used. So,
yep.
So we'll see you in a couple more weeks. Thanks for watching.
And before you go, be sure to like us on the YouTube channel. And I know that we provide the link within our Koha-US, but make sure you hop over to the YouTube channel and like us or subscribe. You can subscribe to the entire channel, or you can subscribe to the playlist, excuse me, and you'll be notified every time that we put up a new video.
Yep.
All right, and make sure you comment.
Yeah, we do listen to comments. This video is proof of that. So,
all right, well, until next time.
Bye, everybody.